What is going on, YouTubeverse? John Stanek from Johnny Radio here, bringing you another Top 5 on this glorious Top 5 Friday. And guys, we are at year end. So exciting. So it's that time. We're doing the Top 5 albums of 2022. And there's been so much great stuff if you've been following along on my channel all year. But man, it was hard to whittle down, but I think I did it. So these are my personal favorites, my top 5. Let's not waste any time. Let's get right to it. At number 5. A Light for Attracting Attention by The Smile, my most anticipated album of the year, which definitely delivered. I mean, come on, the super group of 2 Radiohead members mixed with a Son of Kemet member, you can't go wrong, right? And yeah, Thom Yorke and Jonny Greenwood, basically the 2 best members of Radiohead if we had to, rank them. But while it didn't quite meet my expectations of like a Radiohead level album, this comes very close. I think it's the best side project out of any Radiohead thing that's been done thus far. And yeah, I mean, there's so many great kind of groovy rockers on here, like The Opposite and The Smoke. Also, I love We Don't Know What Tomorrow Brings, like almost very punk rock, as well as You Will Never Work in Television Again, one of the first singles they released. They released a lot of singles leading up to this thing, but there's also some really cool, solid ballads like Open the Floodgates. I think is very beautiful. I love the way the synths, they have multiple things going on there at once. And of course, Tom's voice and, Johnny's melodies on the guitars. Yeah, it's fantastic. Didn't quite make it to the top of my list, but still had to make it. So that's my number 5. Now at number 4. Cheat Codes, Black Thought and Danger Mouse. What a collaboration. And yeah, I think the greatest hip hop album of the year. And, just those 2 together, one of my favorite songs of the year, as I said last week, was No Gold Teeth. I still think it's one of the greatest singles of the year, and I just had that thing on repeat over and over again. But then you have Because, which is a really cool track. You've got Belize, which features MF Doom. You've got Aquamarine, which features vocals by Michael Kiwanuka. Lots of really cool features throughout the record. Strangers is another great one, which has Run the Jewels on it and A$AP Rocky. And yeah, it feels like all the features are not just done for the sake of them. They're done very tastefully, done very well, but I think where it shines the most is Black Thought himself, who I think is a very underrated MC. And of course, production by Danger Mouse, you can never go wrong there. So yeah, had to make the list. So now at number 3, I Am the Moon 2 Ascension by Tedeschi Trucks Band. This was 1 out of 4 albums that they released all in the same year, all as a part of a same album as a whole. I didn't pick the album as a whole because I felt like the other records, 1, 3, and 4, were not quite as strong as this one. But this, as a standalone record, Ascension, is just fantastic. It's and it's a clean, just 7 songs and no filler whatsoever. Every song is great in a different way. They've got rockers like Playing With My Emotions. And they've got bluesy tracks like So Long Savior. What I really think shine the most are the kind of ballads that build up into some very interesting things like All the Love and Hold That Line. Just beautiful tracks. And of course, Derek Trucks on guitar, fantastic, one of the best in the game. Susan Tedeschi, one of the greatest vocalists in the game, who often gets compared to Bonnie Raitt. She's got that kind of raspy vocal, bluesy performance, but she's really come into her own at this point. I mean, the band have never released a bad record, but I feel like they're really pushing the limits of what they can do, and they've really hit it home on this particular record out of the four. So good, and had to have it on my list. So that's my number 3. Now at number 2. Lucifer on the Sofa by Spoon. You know I was going to have Spoon on my list. I mean, they're just one of the most solid rock bands at, ever at this point. I mean, they've, thank God they've been nominated for a Rock Album of the Year Grammy, which is so great to hear. Just the whole thing from start to finish is so good. The opening track, Held, is fantastic. This was on my top 5 songs list as well. The Hardest Cut was such a great rocker. The second track on here. I wouldn't say the album is front loaded. Even though I love My Babe and Wild is a really strong song. But I feel like towards the end of the record, it falls off a little bit, although the title track at the end is really interesting and kind of a different turn for the style of Spoon. But Britt Daniel, man, I mean, no matter what he's singing, he always sounds so good with that kind of John Lennon nasally rasp, and the band just doing always interesting things on guitar throughout. Songs like On the Radio and Satellite are really cool. There's really not a weak track on here, and although it's not probably in my top 3 Spoon records, it's still saying something that it would make my top 5 at this point. It is so good. So that's my number 2. Now at number 1. Omnium Gatherum by King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard. Yes, the double album that is just so good, man. The whole thing, there's really not, I wouldn't say any weak tracks. There's 1 or 2 tracks that are like just a very bizarre style that I can't get into, but they're all over the map style-wise on here. It's almost like their White Album if you were comparing their discography to the Beatles, which is already impossible to do because these guys have over 20 albums already. But to me, from what I've heard thus far, this is the strongest. And I think it has a lot to do with the fact that they took some time off because of COVID, and that time to ruminate on things, I think when they got back in the studio, man, they just exploded with songs like The Dripping Tap, my favorite song of the year, 18 plus minutes, and just an amazing psychedelic jam that never gets old, starting off the album, and then where to go from there. But Magenta Mountain, which is like this definitely kind of alternative but very catchy. Really everything on here is very accessible. I feel like the melodies by these guys throughout the record are so great. Another one of my favorites, Kepler 22B, which has this very jazzy kind of vibe to it. A great drumming on that track, really throughout the whole album. These guys are just so good at everything they do. And they even try out hip-hop on here on a couple of tracks, The Grim Reaper and Sadie Sorceress, which both of them are so fun, reminiscent of the Beastie Boys in some ways. And it's just, it's great fun to go from like a metal song like Gaia into a hip-hop song and then into Ambergris, which is like an R&B track. They really leave no leaf unturned here on this record. You've got just cool kind of slow burners like Persistence, where they're saying, "Ooh, baby, I got persistence." And it's just like, yeah, man, it's so fun. I listened to this album so many times throughout the year, and just based on spin time alone, I had to give them the number 1 spot. I could go on and on about it because like there's just all the songs are great, but yeah, that's my list, guys. So let me know in the comments below, what do you think? What would your top 5 be? And if you're so bold, leave me a top 10, because as you know, there's just always so much great music out there if you have the patience to look for it. And that's what we're all about here at Johnny Radio, discovering and rediscovering great music. So guys, we got top 5s every Friday. We got album reviews. We got big countdowns, tier lists, so much more and so much more coming in the new year. So guys, thanks so much for watching. And as always, Viva la vinyl. So guys, thanks so much for watching. Please like, subscribe, and be sure to ring the bell for notifications so you can always see great quality content like you're seeing on the screen right now. Thank you so much for supporting Johnny Radio, and I'll see you soon.